Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see your smiling faces here in April. Isn't it a beautiful day outside? It's awesome. Well, I just wanted to open with a couple comments. Number one, it's important that Oklahomans think about this and understand it. And so I just appreciate you guys covering these things and letting Oklahomans understand. I tell people all the time that as citizens, if all 4 million Oklahomans could sit on the couch in my office and we could go through the issues, it's a pretty common sense. That's what I always use to make decisions. And we're going to be fair with everybody. We don't pick winners and losers. Nobody wants a government picking winners and losers. And so, I signed a compact with the Cherokees, the Choctaws, the Chickasaws on tobacco and on car tags. And now the Creeks, the Muskogee Creeks, they're trying to get the legislature. They're up in this building and they're meeting with legislatures, members trying to intervene this compact process. They want to do a 2-year extension so that they can outlast Governor Stitt because they want a special deal. So here's some important background for everybody to understand that the Creeks Compact expired on tobacco December 31st of 2024. So December 31st expired. In good faith, they came to us and said, oh, we need more time to negotiate. We said, no problem. So we gave them an extension until March 31st of this year to negotiate, to talk about the card tag compacts, to talk about tobacco, to give them time to go back to their tribal council as they were telling us they needed to do. Nothing. They refused to negotiate. They haven't been good faith partners. And now they're trying to circumvent the governor of Oklahoma and go directly to the legislature to get a special deal. This is what's really important for Oklahomans to understand. They want a special deal. They believe they should drive on the roads, on the turnpike, and not pay the tolls like everybody else. And that's what's happening because the tags that they print that say Muskogee Creek Nation on it, it's not inside our database. So the tolls that we have don't have any way to bill that license plate. That's the problem. No other state would deal with this. You can't just go print license plates in any other state in America and drive on the roads. And so the law enforcement doesn't know who that is. It just makes no sense. And as governor, when I see this stuff, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We're going to know who's driving our roads. We're going to make sure that we know what the revenue that we collect that goes to pay for roads and bridges in the state of Oklahoma. So I just want Oklahomans to hear it from me. I'm not going to let, I'm not going to let one race not pay a toll and then charge every other race, right? Let's make tolls free for everybody. Let's get rid of the tolls completely before we do that, right? That's what we need to do. So this deal is still on the table. We've offered this to the Creeks on tobacco and the car tag compact. So it's really disappointing. And I think when Oklahomans sit down and really think about it, they'll be like me. They'll be frustrated when they see a car tag out there that's printed on that says Muskogee Creek Nation on it. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, comments. Yes, sir.
Sir, there's been reports that some members of the State Board of Education regret their support for the new social studies standards and that they would prefer the legislature to determine them, to make them review them, and vote. Would you be supportive of the legislature doing that?
Well, first off, yeah, the legislature, it's in their court right now. So the way that works, those are approved by a board, and then they go to the legislature for final approval if they're in session. So certainly the legislature needs to act on that. The thing that concerned me was the mechanics, how it was done. So it's been showed to me from the board members that they were emailed a copy of those standards, but then there was a different standard that was sitting on the desk that they actually voted on. Well, that's very, very odd. In a corporate board setting, if a CEO came and sent the board a package and said, we're voting on this policy, but then they slid a different policy that they actually were voting on, the board would be very, very frustrated, hold people accountable. The problem right now is these boards are supposed to hold people accountable, right? But there's legislation that a board member can't put something on the agenda. That's being held up in the legislature right now. I hope that gets across the finish line, because it doesn't make sense for Oklahomans or to me or to anybody if we're supposed to hold the agencies accountable and a board member can't even pull something up to ask questions and can't get an agenda item on a board. And I know we're kind of in the weeds, and but that really doesn't make sense when you really stop and think about it. So hopefully the legislature will get that across the finish line. And let's have an honest conversation about what those social studies standards are. I think ultimately, I'm not saying those are good or bad. The legislature is going to have to make a decision on that. But the mechanics of how it came about really just feels like somebody needs to look into it, and we're trying. Yes, sir.
Following that, there were discussions on administrative rules today, and earlier this session, you had talked about the citizenship document rule that the State Department of Education, the Board of Education put forward. House members today said that they kind of want to disapprove of that rule. Several reasons. Statute for it should just go to the legislature, not the acting rules process. Didn't know if you had an update on that, if you talked about that with the legislators.
That's the whole reason that you need the board member to be able to put an agenda item on to be voted on or be discussed even, right? So I think this one bill would solve all this. There was a joint press statement, I think, between the speaker and the pro tem saying this is a good thing. I mean, who doesn't think that's normal, whether you're on a bank board or you're on Walmart's board or any board? If the board members cannot say, hey, let's talk about this subject, it's really not a board, right? It's a dictatorship. And so I think that's really the question that we're asking ourselves. And we find these things out, and I just push the legislature to say, hey, we need to fix this. When you find these things out, let's get this stuff fixed. The legislature can fix that, but if the board's able to fix it, then the board would put something on there and they would say, hey, let's discuss this further. Maybe we shouldn't put kids on a list. I've beat that dead horse 100 times now. I don't think that President Trump's policies are talking about, going after kids, right? He's talking about criminals. He's talking about criminal activity. He's talking about getting those folks out of our country, securing our border, knowing who's coming in. We agree with all that. I'm not going to start on picking on 7 and 8 year olds and putting them on a list. It's not a public safety issue. So I'm trying like heck to make sure that we have some common sense here in Oklahoma, and I need some help from the legislature to be able to get that across the finish line. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Governor. Both at Oklahomans and KFOR had stories this week about new people at the State Department of Education getting hired by Ryan Walters, getting big paychecks. The backgrounds appear to be more on the political consultants, communications side. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what taxpayer money is paying for at that agency right now with those new people.
Yeah, I mean, great conversation. I mean, I think you guys need to report on that kind of stuff. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think that's why, citizens, we hate politicians. We get so frustrated with the political process because we're not dumb. Oklahomans are not dumb. Oklahomans see these people that are in these different political positions that are running for their next office, and they're looking for press statements, and they're trying to use state dollars to, make political statements. So I don't know specifically who they're hiring. There's 30,000 employees in the state of Oklahoma, and unfortunately, you know me, the governor doesn't get to hire and fire all the different state agency heads. So those all report to different boards or commissions, or they're separately elected. That's the way the system's set up. And so it's up to us as citizens to understand what's happening and hold our elected officials accountable. The more the more I'm in this office, I try to explain everywhere I go around the state when I talk to different groups is I first thank them for being there, because the fact that you're watching this on TV or the fact that you're listening to this, you want to be more informed in what's happening in the state of Oklahoma. And that's a good thing, because when you understand these issues, like you pointed out, you start connecting the dots. you start connecting the political dots with what's happening, and then you look at the lobbyist and how everything is connected. And instead of just doing the business of the people, that we believe in lower taxes, smaller government, a lot of stuff gets tied up in the politics and moving towards the next office. And super frustrating for me as an Oklahoman that is going back to the private sector and is going to be cheering on the next guy and going to be trying to help my state grow. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor. Clifton Adcock with the Frontier. This is about the Illinois River poultry lawsuit. A.G. Drummond has said that one of the things that he hopes to see, any sort of plan that comes out or any sort of settlement agreement that comes out is, I guess, barring land application of poultry that are within the Illinois River watershed. Is that something that you can get behind, and why or why not?
So thank you for asking that. That's a great question, because here's the deal. We can all play Monday morning quarterback, and we can all say, it's easy targets for big business, right? Oh, that's a real rich business. Let's go after them. Let's go sue them. But here's the facts. These businesses had permits. They followed the law. They did everything they were supposed to. And so 20 years later, you have Attorney General at the time, Drew Edmondson, brought a lawsuit against the chicken industry. And then out of nowhere, you have A.G. Drummond resurrect this lawsuit after it sat dormant for 15 years, I think, maybe it was 13 years, and brought up, and then actually had empowered, Attorney General Edmondson to get back involved and try to, get a pound of flesh out of these businesses. So absolutely not. I am for, there's no possible way that I would be for playing Monday morning quarterback, going to a business and saying, well, you've got deep pockets, you can afford it. Even though you followed all the rules and you had all the permits and you did everything like we told you to do, but now we don't like it. And so we want you to give us $1 billion. That's basically what these trial attorneys are doing. And again, connect the dots. Attorney General Drummond's running for governor and trying to win some political points with the trial attorneys, and he's going after our agricultural industry. So really, really frustrating. I wouldn't be supportive of that at all. And I'll say this to everybody out there. If we think that the Illinois River needs addressing and we think the application of fertilizer is not correct, then we need to fix that. And you fix that going forward, right? So I've talked to Secretary Blaine Arthur. They get all their standards from the EPA when we implement those in the state of Oklahoma. And so we can have a great conversation about it. We can run legislation. The agency can actually fix that. But to go back and punish companies is just because of their balance sheet, and you say, oh, they've got the resources, they can afford it, 100% against it. And I think most Oklahomans, this will tear our state apart business-wise. The reason we're a pro-business state and we've got so much momentum is that there's assurance and there's confidence that Oklahoma doesn't treat companies like California does. And if we go down this road, it is going to be devastating for new entries and new businesses. They'll say, hey, it's just not worth it. We'll go somewhere that really, stands with the rule of law. But that's the way I see it. I think it's really, really clear. I think most Oklahomans agree with me on that. You can't go back and punish a company for doing what they were supposed to do and what they had their license and approvals to do. Yes, sir.
Hey, what's going on, Governor? I know I hate to harp on this again, the social studies standards again. You've got Paxton last week that basically said they're going to go for Monday's kind of the deadline to act on it. May 1st, but Monday's the real day to act on it. Hilbert kind of didn't have a problem with it. And then you've got a board member, and I don't need to put him on the spot, that is here today at this presser. Have you talked to the Republican lawmakers and told them, hey, let's rethink this, let's look back at it, because it seems pretty serious at this point? And then a lot of people spoke out in public comment too. So
About what?
about the social studies standards. Have you talked to Republican lawmakers to say, hey, take another look at that, let's go back over this, let's rethink it?
back to your first point. Yeah, the pro tem. I didn't know he said he would get that across the finish line.
It looks like it's going to go through. They didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I know that they originally made a great statement in the beginning and just said, yeah, it's pretty reasonable for a board member to be able to put stuff on an agenda item. So hopefully that does go through. Hopefully politics doesn't get in the way, and the pro tem will get that done, and the speaker, and they'll get that to my desk. So on the social study standards, again, like I answered before, let's look at the mechanics of it. Let's dig in those. Let's make sure at least the board knows what they're voting on. And y'all need to ask those questions. You need to get that out and report on that. If there were two different submissions to the board and they didn't have an advance, I think those are issues that we should all be frustrated about, right? And then the standards themselves, the legislature, hopefully they'll act on that. And I don't know, they may punt it to me, so we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Governor. I got two questions on the Doge OK report that identified $157 million in federal healthcare grant funding as being unnecessary or unused. My first question is that several of the grants that were identified seem to fall in line with funding that the Trump administration wanted to resend, dealing with COVID-19 era funding. Was that intentional on Doge OK's part, or just a coincidence that so many of those grants aligned with the federal funding that was going to be pulled back?
Yeah, I think that was just coincidence. I'd need to know specifically, but what the health department has told me is these are unused grants, right? It's stuff that we had sitting there that were never deployed. We didn't have the need for them, or there was some kind of complication that we did not have the use of it. So I don't think it had anything to do with politics from the federal level. I think we were just trying to look through and find savings back to the federal government. And obviously, if you have a pile of money that you've never used, that's a pretty easy savings to return back. And $157 million is more than a ham sandwich.
Very well. And the second question is next steps. It sounds like we have that money, and are we going to be returning it to the federal government? Is it money that they haven't maybe given to us yet, and we're just not going to take it from them? What does that look like next steps?
So I think Oklahomans will find it. I found it really interesting whenever I talked to the Doge folks. There's no mechanism in the federal government to receive funds back. And so I think we talked to our U.S. senators and said, hey, you need to run a bill that allows a state to actually return unused money from the states. And so it's still sitting, it's my understanding, it's still sitting here in the state of Oklahoma because there is really no apparatus for the federal government to take money back. And we're seeing that with Elon talking about that. And this is a good example. I think most Oklahomans understand this. The only way that you guys don't have any questions here for me about state agencies or this or that is if we pay every invoice. Same thing that Elon is finding up there. The only time you're starting to hear rumblings is if you're moving someone's cheese, right? If somebody that's living off the government and you all of a sudden are starting to address that and you're asking questions and you're saying, well, how much is this a nonprofit? How much is your CEO making? How much is your COO making? How are the dollars benefiting the mission that the legislature intended this to be? You start asking those questions. First thing they do is hire a lobbyist to come up here and start spreading misinformation and try to get the person fired or try to get you off target and get you on something else. And so I applaud my agency heads for asking these questions. And really, you guys in this room, keep digging, keep asking these questions, keep exposing. We're trying to shine a light on state government and make sure that the state dollars are used effectively. You're looking at a governor that believes in smaller government, lower taxes, flat budgets. I want government to be more efficient. And I think we've proven that over the last 7 years.
Speaking of shining a light on government institutions, you have just appointed 2 people this month to the OSU, Oklahoma Board of Regents for the Agricultural Mechanical College of Government OSU, as well as Mr. Williams today for the Oklahoma Board of Regents. I was curious regarding your Regent appointments. Both of these gentlemen, I think, have experience in venture capital or capital lending, however you'd say. How did they kind of go through the process? What were you looking for, and what are you hoping for them as they respectively look at OU and OSU as institutions OSU having a more recent headline making financial scenario? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So, with Oklahoma State University, the problems that needs to be fixed, quite frankly, is the restrictions on how I pick Board of Regents. OU has a much better system. The regents I pick at OU can be from anywhere in the United States, right? They can live anywhere. They can be whatever acumen we need for that specific purpose. We can go find the very best and brightest in the United States, and we can put them on these boards. I actually have 2 board members from out of state. I've got one in Ohio, Stevenson, and then I have a guy out of East Texas, Ken Waits, on the OU Board of Regents. These are super sharp business people. These are billion-dollar industries. These are billion-dollar corporations, so to speak, that spend a lot of money. They hire a lot of people, and you need some strong board members. So Rainey Williams, the guy I just put on the OU's Board of Regents, is just an amazing Oklahoman, super smart, well-respected Oklahoma City person, but great acumen when it comes to looking at finances, looking at legal issues. He's an attorney from the University of Oklahoma. Been a very successful business leader. He served on the OU Health Board and just done an amazing job there of righting that ship. And so I think he's going to be great. And then the other board members, I trust them, and they tell me, hey, here's what we need on these boards. Can you find this for us, Governor? And then we go out and try to find the very best person. So that's that. Tracy Poole up in Tulsa. Tulsa, back to Oklahoma State, I had to choose from the Tulsa area. And this was an at-large piece. So the other problem with Oklahoma State's board is you have to choose sometimes from certain geographic areas around the state, and they have to have agricultural in their, they have to be farmers or ranchers, which is good, right, on paper. But then it just keeps shrinking the pool that you can pull from. And instead of just saying, hey, if I need a business person, or if I need an attorney, or if I need someone that has healthcare, expertise, I can go get that person, or the best person in the state. But Tracy is amazing. Same thing. He's got similar background to Rainey Williams. He's an attorney, worked for McAfee and Taft, went to Chicago and ran some private equity folks, and then a great family, great leader in the Tulsa community. And I think he'll bring a business acumen to the board, and they need some more fiscal discipline up there. And again, when I talk to the other board members, they kind of tell me where they're lacking and what they need help with. Back to Rainey Williams, his expertise, overseeing the OU Health, which is a big part of what OU does, is something that's going to be very beneficial to the board, I think. So, but there's no exact science on it. You just go try to find the very best people. You interview them, and then I talk to the board members and ask them what they need, and sometimes even talk to the administration and make sure that there's no red flags, and we go through our process. So, thank you guys so much for being here.